very pleased because, in our strategy we have certain plans. We're able to put a few ticks behind the achievements. One of the achievements is the Golpu pre-feasibility results. Fantastic project, great ore body, and shareholders are now seeing the value in that, and they're giving us some credit for that. We've been doing a lot of work on there in the last few years, a lot of drilling, so that's really coming together now into feasibility for stage 1, pre-feasibility for stage 2, so we'll see that happening during the year. So that's fantastic.
Now, one of the great battles you're facing is bringing down costs. Something like 2 years ago, you were $1,600 an ounce. You brought that down now. How far are you with that, and how difficult has it been?
Yeah, it's tough because we do have fairly marginal assets, so it's a case of restructuring our business, and restructuring always involves people, and therefore it's quite tough. So during this quarter we've had some success there. We've closed Target 3, we've closed a hospital, so we have lost quite a few people. We have commenced in the process at Kasasa, and our intent is really somewhere by the middle of this year is really to have all our operations cash flow positive.
And how far do you want to drive costs down, and how are you going to do it in the year that lies ahead?
Yeah, it really is quite operational dependent. I mean, obviously we need to have a margin between what the gold price is in rand terms in South African assets, but we need to get that margin and have that margin continually going in the future. So with current gold prices, it's somewhere around 1250 or 430,000 rand a kilogram. We need to have our costs below that to get that margin.
And what about the power problems that all mines are facing? It's been quite costly for you, I understand, in the last quarter.
Yeah, it's it's disruptive. Obviously, we would like to use power and produce gold. I mean, that's really what we want. So when Eskom has a problem, they come to us and say we need to reduce our consumption, and sometimes up to 20%. You can't just take 20% of your usage out of the system and be able to produce the same results. So it has affected our production. But, during last quarter there weren't severe electricity constraints. Of course, currently there are more, so it's probably likely to affect us more in the future. This is not about simply a cost thing. This is about the disruptive nature of cutting back on production.
And you said you lost 50 kilograms in the last quarter. You think, what could be the next quarter if things do get worse?
Sure. I mean, it could get worse, but, what we really focus on is those areas which have basically, less disruption. So we stop hoisting during the day, during peak hours. We try and push more of that electricity consumption to the evening, to the night time. I guess we work more at night now than we used to. Mills, unfortunately, if you stop turning that mill, then that's a permanent thing. So, it does affect, for instance, our surface sources at the moment. We're trying to prevent it from affecting the underground production. But, one has to see at the end of the quarter as to how bad the electricity cuts would have been.
And 50 kilograms as a percentage of the total production of that quarter, what percentage is it?
Yeah, it's a fairly small percentage, but, everything is significant because you've actually, you've had the cost of producing that 50 kilograms. You just haven't sold that 50 kilograms because you haven't been able to process it. So, you've got the cost of the production, but you haven't got the benefit in the sales. So it's sort of quite a difficult thing. Obviously, if we know that it's going to be a permanent thing, then you have to cut the production costs as well, which means further sort of restructuring, which is not where we want to go. We think those assets can actually produce at a profit, and therefore we need to focus on that. So, we try to get that production, recover that production at night if possible.
And in some ways, you mines are in a bit of a cleft stick. I mean, is it something like 2,600 megawatts for your entire operation, I understand? And that's too much for you to build generators to cover that kind of power. What can you do about it?
Yeah, you can reduce some of your electricity consumption by being clever with, new engineering techniques, new machinery that's more efficient. But you can actually try and cut out some of the other production. I mean, we've actually got a bioenergy product which we're starting in the Free State. Now that will reduce some of our energy. It won't deal with the whole thing, but it will reduce some of the electricity consumption, so we'll be able to generate some of our own. So those are the sort of things that we need to look at. But we have to look at the whole spectrum, right from how we use our electricity, how efficient we are in use of it, how can we replace some of it, and as you rightly point out, to build new plants for us is pretty well out of hand, so we can't do that sort of thing, but we have to look at everything.